California's Communities is supported by the California Redevelopment Association Foundation, a statewide organization made up of cities, counties, nonprofits, and private businesses sharing a common goal of bringing renewed life to neighborhoods and downtowns by expanding local businesses, creating jobs, building affordable housing, restoring buildings, and improving public facilities and infrastructure. Redevelopment, building better communities throughout California.
Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and it doesn't get any prettier than this. Here we are in Sacramento, our state's capital, and I've come to this neighborhood in search of two painted ladies. Now, I've been hearing about these two ladies for years. They're very popular. I got here this morning and started asking one of the locals here, where are the painted ladies? And they said, uh-oh, those painted ladies fainted. Well, that's not good news. So I started walking around looking for two beautiful ladies that had fainted, met somebody else, and they said, oh, don't worry, these fainted ladies are okay. They're back in good health. They're looking pretty good. And they're right around here. So I'm going to be spending the whole day in Sacramento, in this neighborhood, looking for the two painted ladies that fainted that are okay these days. It's going to be a wonderful day, a beautiful day, because this is a beautiful neighborhood. Lots of exciting things going on here, right here in Sacramento, one of California's communities. I think we're going to have a lot of fun on this particular adventure. Let's set the stage. Well, first off, let's introduce everybody.
I'm Bruce Boer. Welcome to Sacramento, Huell.
Nice to meet you.
Richard Mallett. Glad to see you.
I'm glad to be here, and this just isn't any old neighborhood where we're standing right now. This is one of the most historic neighborhoods in Sacramento, and I'd never heard of it before.
Yes, it is. This is Sacramento's oldest residential area. It started after Sacramento developed along the river, and the neighborhood moved over to here.
So this was one of the first neighborhoods, and it's called
Alkali Flat.
Which is not a very, it's not a great name. I live in Alkali Flat.
It doesn't bring the prettiest picture to mind, but when the Sacramento and American River flooded each year, as the waters receded, the alkalinity in the soil would come up and leave a white blanket across this area. Therefore, Alkali Flat.
And it's still called Alkali Flat today.
To this day, it's Alkali Flat.
Okay, we got the neighborhood part of the story out of the way. Now let's talk about those painted, fainted ladies, because you all know these painted ladies, don't you?
We've met a few of them. We were part of the original auction of those fainted ladies.
All right, now let's pull the camera out. There's one of the painted ladies over here. Here's one of the fainted ladies over here, and you're playing off that painted lady fame. The Victorian house is called Painted Ladies.
That's right, Huell. We have the same era of housing that San Francisco did. They were famous for their painted ladies, but our ladies fell on bad times. Our ladies had fainted, so we had the fainted ladies.
All right, and this is all part of a Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency program to restore the painted ladies. So they call this the Fainted Lady program. What was that all about?
What they did was, this was the first neighborhood in Sacramento, therefore it became the worst neighborhood in Sacramento. The redevelopment agency bought up 4 blocks in either direction, emptied all the buildings, fenced it off, and then held auctions. And that's where Richard and I got involved.
So this neighborhood had seen better times before you got here. When you got here, things were looking pretty bad.
There was crime and drugs. It wasn't a desirable neighborhood to live in. And the agency, by doing this, were able to create a stimulus or a nucleus to bring this whole neighborhood back.
So what did they do? They made these houses available at a low rate for people like you all to buy and fix up?
It was an auction. They'd hold a house up and say, who wants this auction?
Did anybody want them beside the two of you? Did anybody think this was a good deal?
Well, yes, there were a few bidders, but you had to have some courage to get into this because it wasn't a piece of cake.
Yeah, I've seen these before and after pictures. The before ones look pretty pretty sketchy, to say the least.
Yeah, so a few of us got in there and decided we wanted to tackle this, and we did, and you can see the results. It's just come back. But that was an important part, to create a catalyst to bring this neighborhood back.
To actually bring this neighborhood back from the dead, to resuscitate these fainted ladies and paint them again.
That was our job, to try and turn those derelict buildings into the pretty useful buildings that they are today.
When did all this happen? In the 70s, in the 80s, in the 90s?
In 1972, the redevelopment agency began their process of purchasing and boarding up the buildings. The rounds of auctions that we got involved in were 1977. They took 2 or 3 rounds to get rid of all of them. The first ones that were nice, or the nicer ones, went quicker, but Richard and I were there for the 77 auction.
Boy, this is amazing, and a real success story that this neighborhood here in Alkali Flat has been restored. And how big an area are we talking about? Because we're just on the edge of it, aren't we?
I think we have about 6 city blocks total.
Of these old homes like this.
Yes.
It is now a desirable place. We're close to the Capitol. We're close to City Hall. We're close to downtown. People now want to live here.
But there's more to Alkali Flat than those beautiful old, restored, historic, Victorian homes. Look at this. This is overwhelming. It's historic, and it's very much a part of this revitalized community. And you should know, Jim, you're with the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency. What are we looking at here?
We're looking at the restored Globe Mills building. It's a structure that dates back to the early part of the 20th century. And it's just won an award, a national award for redevelopment excellence. But I'll tell you, if we had an award for most blighted building in Sacramento about 5 years ago, this project would have won it.
This was one of the worst.
This was one of the worst, the worst in Sacramento.
And that's saying something, because there were a lot of bad buildings in this area.
We definitely were in the running for worst, but this won.
And it sat here empty for how long?
The owner originally that had it died in 1980. It sat in the estate empty till 92 for the first fire, then a second fire in 95, and that's when the agency scheduled it for demolition.
All right, but before the demolition trucks could get there, a developer started sniffing around. Your name, sir?
Skip Rosenblum.
Okay,
Nice to
you're
meet
the
you.
guy who took this project on.
Well, I'm one of them. I have a partner as well, Cyrus Yusefi, but we took it on, yeah, I actually got involved about 7 years ago.
This has been a long process.
It's been a long process. I was young and had hair in those days.
So this project caused you to lose your hair?
For the most part, yeah.
How big a deal was it to take on something like this? You had to have faith in something.
Well, I had faith we could do something with it, and I wasn't really sure what 7 years ago.
Here's the guy who's helping you along the way. Your name, sir?
Mike Malinowski, the architect.
You're the architect, and for an architect, getting a project like this has got to be tough, but also like a dream come true, to work with something this beautiful and this historic and with these kinds of lines to it.
I was drawn to it because people judged it to be impossible, and that made it interesting, and it's an icon, and it's big and tough, and a lot of concrete there.
But not everybody in the neighborhood, I heard, wanted to keep it. Some people looked at this and thought it was an eyesore.
We saw through that and envisioned that it would become an icon again for redevelopment of the community.
Wow. This is absolutely beautiful, and as beautiful as it is on the outside, you promise me that if we go inside...
Yeah, well, it's going to take your breath away, Huel. I'm sure of it. Yes, I'm sure of it.
Here's an architect who's proud of what he's done. Let's go inside and take a look. Okay, we've come inside the lobby, the main lobby of Globe Mills, and first off the bat, Mike, we're looking down through, well, what are we looking at?
Well, that's the basement that was under the silos, and we've saved some of the old equipment there and put it on display, Huel.
And you put a cut in the concrete, so you're looking down through this glass at what's below. What's below is interesting, but look at this. Below, above. What are these things coming out of the ceiling?
Well, these actually moved grain originally, but we saved them and turned them into light fixtures.
This is exactly the way they were. I mean, this is where the grain was pouring down in and out of the silo.
Exactly, yes. Isn't that interesting?
And when you saw these, you thought light fixtures.
I knew we had to save them. The light fixtures came after a while. It's just puzzling over what do we do with those cool things.
Architecturally, these are very, very interesting. It's interesting out here in the lobby, but it's even more interesting. Here we go. We're coming inside the silo.
Our mailroom silo.
You made this into the mailroom. Hello? Hello? Because we are looking straight up. How far?
That's all the way up to the bottom of the 6th floor, the head house.
And there were how many of these silos here?
24 like this.
And how do you decide to implement an empty silo, 24 empty silos, into the architecture of a functioning building where people live?
Well, we had to convince the developer that it was worthwhile to do that. It wasn't easy.
Because you wanted to save them.
Exactly.
But in most cases, it's unused space, really. It's empty, right?
It is empty. Not anymore.
What do you mean?
Well, we're inside of it. We put equipment, mailroom, we've got elevators, stairs. We've tried to make use of these spaces.
Wow, this is amazing. This is the most unique mailroom I have ever been in. When you come in here to get your mail, you are a part of history, of architecture, and of creative use of space. Hello? Hello? Okay, from the mailroom to one of the actual lofts itself, and boy, this is a spectacular loft. We can talk about it in just a minute, but look what we got up here. Cue the tenant. Come on down here, tenant. We caught him a little off guard today, didn't we, Mike?
We kind of barged in on Bob.
Well, you don't mind if a camera crew shows up in your living space, do you?
No, not at all.
Your name is?
Will you be here tomorrow?
Your name is?
Bob Orr.
Okay, now you're one of the new tenants here. This is a spectacular place. Why here, and what got you excited about living here?
Well, I lived in San Francisco in a loft, and I have a particular appreciation of lofts. And so when I moved back here to be closer to my son, I looked at virtually every space in Sacramento that was of a loft type or design. And the moment I walked in here, I fell in love. And I fell in love because I saw the history and the way it was architecturally done and what the developers have done. I fell in love with it.
Look at this. I'm just looking over your shoulder. Look at this wall here. This is the kind of thing that gets you excited, isn't it?
It is. It's really amazing because if you look at some of the places like over there, there's still some of the graffiti that's been left, and these are all the original walls, and even I understand some of the original fixtures, so it really is quite amazing.
And Mike, as an architect, this is exactly what you wanted to do, was to keep the feel and the sense of history in each one of these lofts.
Yeah, it was an industrial space, so I wanted it to feel like an industrial space when we were done. In fact, the broken edge that you see here, these were silos that were inside this part of the building that we took out to create this space.
I'm not sure about the graffiti, if it could talk, but if these walls could talk, they would tell stories about the history of early Sacramento.
I couldn't agree more, and that's one of the reasons why I have to give hats off to the developers and the architect and those that were instrumental in saving this. This is a historical location, and to see these types of buildings saved and brought back to life in the way that they've been able to be brought back to life is really amazing, and it's just a place that is unique and something that can live on in a different way.
Okay, now we're outside walking in Mike, where are we right now?
These are the gardens for the mill.
The gardens, and we're starting off right here with these wonderful big old pieces of wood that turn out to be more than just big old pieces of wood.
These were the structure from the mill that burned, yeah, that we saved these timbers.
So you saved the timbers, including some that were half burned, from the old mill and put them out here in the garden.
Yeah, we made trellis structures out of them.
They make quite a statement, but boy, talk about a statement. Look at this over here. And this ties in to the history of the place as well.
This was a dust collector that was on one of the buildings that we removed as part of the early part of the project. We turned it into a water fountain.
I've seen these things kind of all around the building.
Yeah, they were on all the tall buildings here.
What were they again?
Dust collectors. So as you move grain, it creates dust, and these were a way to collect that dust so it didn't end up all over.
And you've made it, along with some of the other equipment, into this beautiful fountain here.
Yeah, it's a nice composition.
We had many ideas, from a swimming pool to an enclosed area. This little area went through many, many iterations before this came to be.
And this little garden here, with all of its history, is now available for barbecues, for cookouts. There are going to be tables here for all the tenants to come out here and enjoy.
Be some great parties here.
Okay, as our tour continues, we've already been at the bottom of one of these 24 silos looking up. Now we're at the top of one of these silos. And here's the silo right here. You cut right through the side of the silo, didn't you, Mike?
We spent 6 months in here cutting. Men hung from holes in the top of these things in a metal cage to make these cuts.
So this is literally the top of the silo.
Right, 60 feet up.
You fixed it so that the stairways go right by the what you opened up. And come on, let's go over here. Our fellows are down at the bottom. Jim and Skip are down there. Hello! 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 There! This is so much fun, but it's so innovative and interesting what you've done with these silos. They're everywhere, incorporated in the feeling of the building.
It's fun to walk through these, yeah. It's not places where people ever were. These were full of grain. In fact, when we started, these walls were coated with grain. We had to power wash all these to get the dust out.
I have never seen, been around a building like this before. Everywhere you go, the architecture, the spaces, the use of light, the use of history, the use of the old concrete silos. This is a new building. I mean, no, it's an old building that now has a new use, and yet you're probably already on the radar screen of a lot of architects all over the world.
Well, we just started getting recognition, and I expect we'll get a lot more as people become aware of what's happened here.
Now, when you say recognition because of what you've done with this particular space, this is kind of unusual, isn't it?
It is. The biggest thing is the marrying of the old and the new, and how we've taken the silos and integrated them into the construction.
What usually happens to buildings like this? That's an easy question.
They get torn down.
Yeah.
This building was considered unsalvageable when we started.
So what really puts this place on the map is that you took a space that no one else thought was possible to be made into something usable and turned it into this.
Yes.
As an architect, how does that make you feel?
Very, very proud. Yeah, humbled and proud.
Now, this is one of the most exciting parts of this whole story. We've already seen how many of them? 31?
31 loft units.
31 loft units in the original Globe Mills Flour building.
Right.
But there's something else exciting about this development. You've added some new buildings attached to the old Globe Mills Flour building that serves what community?
It's senior housing. It's affordable senior housing, so it's available to people who are low-income seniors.
Now, what does that mean, affordable housing?
Well, the rents are low, and what it means is somebody can live here who just has a Social Security check, and There's a big need for that kind of housing because a lot of people didn't save a lot, weren't able to save a lot in their younger days. Somebody here can just be on Social Security and have a very comfortable affordable place to live.
And how many of these apartments are available for rent?
There's 112 senior
But there are not
apartments.
any available. They're already all full, right?
Well, that's true. There's just a very few left now because they've been rented up.
So this shows the need for affordable housing, the need for senior housing, and a need that's being met by this redevelopment project.
That's right, and the rapidity with which this rented up really shows that there is a great need, and people are really appreciating, I think, the opportunity to live here.
I feel like a millionaire living here, and I'm very comfortable, and I just feel real good having my own senior apartment.
You like it?
I like it.
You can afford it?
Yes.
And what do you feel like living here?
Wonderful, because I didn't want to leave California, because I've been here all my life, and I was looking at mobile home parks in Arizona, and I just couldn't see myself there.
So how did you find out about this place?
Craigslist.
You're kidding.
No.
And you just came over and checked it out?
I had a whole list of places I was going to see. I stopped here first, and 20 minutes later I had a place to
You
live.
signed on the dotted line. How did you find out about it?
I just happened to drive by one day and with my sister-in-law, and we just happened to stop and fill out an application, and
Here
Sandra
you are.
told me
Moving
that I
van
had
moved
one.
you in.
Yes.
Had you all, either one, ever heard of Alkaline Flat before?
No, I never had heard of it.
Never heard of the neighborhood?
No.
Have you ever heard of it?
Nope.
Been living here all your life?
Lived in San Diego most of my life.
Oh, okay. So this whole Sacramento thing is something new for you.
I've been passing it on the freeway for 35 years, and now I was looking for a place between the Northwest and San Diego. And I looked on the map, and there was Sacramento. And I thought, well, I had never been there, so then when I saw how beautiful the city is, how dignified, how really cultural, wonderful
And how
culture.
historic. Look where,
Oh, yeah.
look at this old machinery back here. This is the real thing.
I know. I love the California history. I mean, how much better can it get than this? These people are just incredible. How much love and money and time does something like this take?
Wow.
This is just terrific. It's terrific for all of us.
You know what's exciting about all this is everything we have seen here at Globe Mills, the lofts, the affordable housing for seniors, all of this, well, actually, none of this could have happened without redevelopment, could it, Skip? I don't want to blow their horn too much, but they were pretty important in all of this.
No, I think that's absolutely accurate. We could not have financed this project without the help of the Redevelopment Agency of Sacramento. It was, in fact, we really had no idea what we were going to do here when 7 years ago we first began the development process to try to figure out what to do, and really collaborated from that time on with the city and the Redevelopment Agency in particular to try to figure out what could make this site work and use this historic resource.
And why did redevelopment get involved in this?
Well, you know, as I said, this is the most blighted property that was left in Alkali Flat. It was the one that we really needed to do to really bring this area back. And it really sent a message at the time before it was rehabbed, that this was not a place to invest. And so we really decided to make a big investment here. We have $15 million at stake in this $38 million project. So we made a big bet on this project. I think it's turned out
It's a bet that paid off.
It's going to be a bet that is going to definitely pay off.
Well, congratulations to you. Boy,
you.
you deserve a gold star by your name.
Thank you
Standing
very
there
much.
in front of this beautiful, beautiful place, which is, of course, serving the community so well, because such a large part of it, those two new buildings down there, these buildings down here, this is all affordable housing for seniors, which is part of the mix. We've talked about the past and the present with the old painted ladies, with Globe Mills, with the senior housing, all of this. Let's end up over here, Jim, talking about the future. And at first glance, this doesn't look very exciting, but it is.
It is, because the goal of redevelopment is to invest in the worst properties in hopes that private developers will come in after us and take up the cause going forward, and that's exactly what we see here. This is a private property, 10 acres actually, adjacent to Globe Mills, that a private developer has come in, acquired, they're clearing it, and they have all their city approvals to come in here and build 217 units of housing, office space. This is going to be a place where people can live and work. So it's going to be a real sustainable type of development.
It all fits together. You restore the old Victorian houses. You restore and rehabilitate and add to the old flour mill. And suddenly this neighborhood becomes attractive and a place for future development and money and people to live. The whole thing.
Right. That's exactly what the goal is. And in this case, I think we're really seeing that pan out, that we're going to have a really nice investment here on the private sector. We've done our work in Alkali Flat. We've made the Victorian blocks come back to life. We've made the Globe Mills come back to life, provided these new communities within a community in Sacramento.
Wow.
And then there's going to be yet more growth and investment in the area.
It only gets better. It's only going to get better. Congratulations. Boy, this really has been an eye-opening day for me, and it's going to be very exciting to see what happens in the future in good old Alkali Flat. One of the most historic parts of Sacramento, one of the most historic places anywhere in California. Not only is it back, but its future is going to be bright as well. This is a wonderful story right here in Alkali Flat in Sacramento, one of California's communities. Well, hello everybody, I'm Huell Hauser, and what a true success story, right in the middle of downtown Sacramento. And if you'd like to see this episode again, or share it with family or friends, it's available on DVD. All you have to do is call 1-800-266-5727, and we'll be glad to send it to you right away.
California's Communities is supported by the California Redevelopment Association Foundation, a statewide organization made up of cities, counties, nonprofits, and private businesses sharing a common goal of bringing renewed life to neighborhoods and downtowns by expanding local businesses, creating jobs, building affordable housing, restoring buildings, and improving public facilities and infrastructure. Redevelopment, building better communities throughout California.